Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. In this week's video, we're gonna touch a little bit more on what is going on with tenancy rules in BC and how they might pertain to you if you're thinking about selling a property or you're thinking about buying a property this summer. Real quick, if this is your first time to the channel, my name is Hassan. I'm a real estate agent in the Vancouver area, and I make educational real estate content to help you on your real estate journey. When I'm not making videos like this, I'm helping people just like you buy and sell real estate across the Lower Mainland. If that sounds interesting to you, or you just want to chat about real estate with me one-on-one, you can book me for a free call in the Calendly link below and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a future video. All right, so to start off this video, if you didn't see last week's video, at some point I recommend that you do take a look. I'm going to link to it somewhere on this screen because I'm going to talk about some elements from that video. Definitely was highly watched. There was a lot of comments in there, both negative, both positive in terms of some of the changes we're seeing on the BC tenancy front here in the province. What I wanted to talk about is some more implications of that. So just to quickly touch on it, now for a personal use eviction, and this includes if you are going to sell your property to a new buyer, even if the tenant is on a month-to-month, you would now need to give 4 calendar months notice to be able to evict the tenant. And that can stretch all the way up to 5 months if you're giving that notice during one of the months, which happens 90% of the time. So what has happened since that announcement, and that announcement actually came out earlier this year, but now they've officially come out and said this is how it's going to be for July 18th. I can speak for myself and a few other agents I've talked to. We've gotten a lot of calls now from landlords saying, you know what, my tenant is giving notice or has given notice. My original plan was to re-rent this property. I'm not going to do that. I need to test out and see what this property can get me on the market. So we're having a lot of discussions now with properties that are soon to be vacant that would have remained in the rental market, but now more likely to hit the sale market. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what you might do in this scenario. You know, the thing to keep in mind, we hear a lot of talk, and I talked about it on this video, about new listings and about total inventory and how much inventory has climbed over the last year-ish. I would say especially we've seen increases in total inventory. One of the things for us to keep in mind with that number is when you're looking to list your property, you know, total inventory is very vague, it's very vast, it includes so many different areas, but it really comes down to what type of property are you listing, in what sort of area, and what does the inventory look like there. The thing about total inventory is so much of this inventory is stale. It's been on the market for a very long time. When I'm doing price assessments for clients, I've been doing a whole bunch of them in the last 2 weeks, specifically towards this scenario. You know, I'm seeing, yes, a lot of listings in certain pockets, but I can quickly look at it and say, wow, that property is so significantly overpriced to where today's market value is. So you're going to see your agent is going to see a whole glut of properties that, yes, they are total inventory. They're sitting on the market, but they're unsellable. And it's not that the product itself is not sellable, that it's not a good unit or whatever it might be. They're just unsellable because of price. And you know what this says is that sellers still hold the cards. There's a lot of sellers out there who don't really have their backs up against the wall. They don't really have a next option for a place to move to. It seems like everyone has a plan B, that if they don't get their price, a lot of them are not going to reduce. You know, they're going to move on to their plan B, whatever it is they plan to do next. They're not going to have their back against the wall. They're not fire sailing any properties out there. Now, one of the biggest questions that I've gotten is, okay, my tenant has given notice, or, you know, I'm thinking of listing my property. Should I wait until September? Rather than list in July, August, slower months, should I just wait until, you know, the busier period of September and put my unit on the market then? Now, one of the things that's really important is if we think historically, and if you talk to agents historically, many will say that, you know, July, August, they're dead. Don't list properties. Wait until September. You know, everyone's away in July. Everyone's away in August. Doesn't make sense to list right now. But what we have to keep in mind is that since the pandemic, so many things are different in our market. And some of the things that are different are the timing of when pockets are busy and when they are not. And so when we look into the data, I got asked this question recently, should I wait till September? Should I do it now? And what we've seen over the last few years, I'll probably pop the chart up here. It might be a little bit difficult to see, but what we've seen is that new listings from August to September expectedly grow significantly. So new listings would be your competition as a home seller. Last year, I believe new listings in August, 3,900 units in Greater Vancouver, and all of a sudden close to 5,500 units in September. Again, expectedly, there's a whole lot of home sellers that think, okay, I'm just going to put it on the market in September. There's going to be more activity. There's going to be more sales. Now, here's where things get different as well. Again, I'm going to pop a 3-year chart here, but if we look at sales, how they have gone from August to September, August 2021, they were essentially flat from August to September, but for the last 2 years, we had more sales done in August than we did in September. So when you have a whole bunch of home sellers that are saying we're going to list in September, you have this unknown of inventory of who you're going to be up against, what you're going to be up against. Whereas in the summer, new listings are not as prevalent. You're not seeing as many people list properties. July tends to be a new listing inflated month, I would say, because a lot of listing agreements expire on June 30th. Very often you take on a 6-month listing. Perhaps that listing started January 2nd. So June 30th is a pretty popular day for listings to fall off. And a lot of these get relisted immediately in July. So while they are new listings, and that will of course appear in the number, it's kind of the same inventory. A lot of it is the same inventory that's hitting in July. So as a seller, if you're listing in July, August, you have a couple of advantages. You have, new listings are not increasing at a clip like we see typically in April, May, and in September, October. And as we've looked at historically, the sales numbers are still strong, and sometimes even stronger in August than September. Now, if you're selling your property, you obviously want to think about, well, what about the buyers? Are the buyers at the beach? Are they with family? Are they picnicking? Are they vacationing? Many of them are. But what you will find is that the motivated buyers, and there's a huge discrepancy in today's market between, yes, I'm a motivated buyer, I need to make a purchase, I need to make a move, and ho-hum, I'm taking a look at properties, and if I see something I like, I'm going to buy it. But the motivated buyers, they continue to work and they continue to look in July and August for various reasons. Some of them may have sold their place already, and so they are feeling like, they have to get into a place quickly. So that may be their motivation. Some people are trying to get all of this tied up and taken care of before going back to school, families especially. So if you're listing now in July, if you are able to move quickly, if you have a vacant property where someone can move in at the end of August, I think that's a huge advantage. That's a huge advantage because that motivated buyer is very time sensitive. And a lot of them do want to get things taken care of before the school year starts in September. All right, so one of the caveats with this, or one of the things that we of course need to look at, is what is the Bank of Canada going to do with their interest rates and their next interest rate announcement. The reality is the Bank of Canada, when they're making these decisions, they don't know today what they're going to do at the end of July. They are waiting for different types of reports, different types of data. That's CPI inflation. They're looking at the jobs numbers. They're looking at what's happening in the US. US data just showed that their CPI inflation has decreased. So they're looking at all the pieces of data before they make decisions what they need to do in July. So for us as home sellers, it's challenging to try and incorporate that into our decision making. And the reality is we saw rates drop 0.25%. It did nothing for the market. It didn't stir up a frenzy. It didn't bring a whole bunch of buyers in. I've said this on my channel before they even dropped the rates, that it wouldn't, and it didn't. And a lot of times, fixed rates are already preset in the sense that fixed rates, which is the product that most mortgage holders are taking, they are forward looking. So they're looking at what we expect is going to happen in the market, and that's generally how fixed rates typically get determined. So, if we have another drop, 0.25%, Does it get a little bit more people into the market? Yes. But again, I go back to, the motivated buyer versus, okay, I'm going to start my search and take a look around. There's a whole cohort of people out there, buyers, that think, okay, well, if I miss this property, I keep hearing about all this new inventory, total inventory is rising. The next one's coming in 15 minutes. It's like catching a bus, right? And a lot of buyers feel this way, that it's okay if I miss out on something, even if I like it a little bit, because what if something hits next week that I like a little bit more? So the whole premise between July and August and listing now is you're going to get those buyers that are motivated. Now, you can't list now and, put it up at a high price, hire an agent who takes photos on his iPhone, doesn't market the property, doesn't have a network out there to get the property to the masses. You can't do things like that. You need a show-ready property. You need to be priced well. But if you are, I don't care where you are in the Lower Mainland, if you're priced well, you show well, and especially if you're flexible on dates, you will have a successful sale. Again, if you go into September, there's more of a caveat of those new listings hitting. Now, jumping back to what I started with, talking about how, a lot of sellers, a lot of landlords are now kind of changing their decision making. So what would happen before is when new buildings completed, you had a lot of clients that purchased units, and their thought process, probably a year or 2 years ago, they're thinking we're going to rent it out. There's been some tenancy changes that are not in favor of landlords. So they've essentially said, okay, let's put this on the market. And, if we don't sell it in 3 months, 4 months, whatever that number is, at least I have a plan B where I can rent it out. Well, the latest policy change by the provincial government has really made that plan B very unfavorable. So, a lot of these people that were thinking, okay, I'm going to list it and then I'm going to rent it out, they're doing everything in their power not to rent it out. Now, at the same time, people don't just choose to lose $25,000, $50,000, $100,000 just to not put a tenant in. There's always a price that you're willing to go to, and maybe that's a little bit of a loss, depends on the seller, tiny bit, but ultimately they're going to put that tenant in. But what happens now with these changes, if we start seeing all of these units that are slated and geared towards the rental market, if we start getting them pulled into the sale market, now it's a misconception to think that, all of these tenants are now all of a sudden going to be able to afford real estate. That's not how it works. That's not how our mortgage programs work here in Canada. We have stress tests that are to protect home buyers that make it so much more difficult on tenants to be able to purchase. So prices will never get to the level where the masses are going to be able to purchase these properties. It'll be helpful for first-time buyers. They'll have some more choices, and I think that's a great thing. I think first-time home buyers often are neglected in our market by policy, so I think that's a great thing. But you start to see rental units getting pulled off of the market. What does that mean for rent prices? Year over year, we've been pretty much flat, even down in Vancouver, I believe, for one bedrooms, which is not something we've seen in a long time. But you gotta think now, with these policy changes and landlords not wanting to rent out their places, what is that going to mean for rental prices moving forward? I think that's something to watch. And so, again, if you are a landlord, you're in this situation, your tenant gives notice, I can't blanket statement and say you should do this, you should do that. You do what you need to do, but I think it would be very prudent to, at the very least, get a market assessment done by an agent who understands the market. And then once you know that number, you can determine, does it make sense for me to re-rent this, or does it make sense for me to sell it? And don't be scared of listing in July, August. In fact, the data has shown that they may be a better time to list than in September. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you did, hit the like button, because what that does is it takes the video and it sends it out to more people so they can also learn from it. And if you like weekly Vancouver real estate content, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss next week's video. And lastly, again, if you're in the Vancouver area or the Fraser Valley, you want to chat real estate with me one-on-one, book me for a free call or just give me a call. Send me a text. Shoot me an email, whatever's easiest for you. I'd be happy to chat with you, but I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this video, and I look forward to seeing you next week.